What's up, everyone? Welcome to the same Philly Sports History for August 7th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Hump Day. It's going to be a stormy, dreary, rainy couple of days here as Hurricane Debbie, I guess she's Tropical Storm Debbie now, rolls through the region, but be safe out there if you happen to get caught in the flood. Let's start today before we get into the Phillies game to see if any of you watched it. Yesterday, I asked you for the question of the day, do you watch the Phillies when they're out on the West Coast? A resounding 70% of you said, yes, you do. Kudos to you, because I was sound asleep last night when the first pitch happened. In case you were not one of those ones and you're one of the ones that were asleep like me, you missed the Phillies with a very solid 6-2 win over the Dodgers. Christopher Sanchez went 6 innings, gave up a run, 2 strikeouts, scattered 5 hits. The bullpen was solid. The offense seemed to get it going. A lot of guys with multiple hits. Schwarber and Armando Sosa both had home runs. Sosa himself had 3 RBI. Bryce went 2 for 5. Just a solid overall game, sort of what you needed and wanted after the debacle that was the night before. It did clinch the season series against the Dodgers, which is huge for home field advantage once the playoffs roll around. The Brewers beat the Braves, so all of a sudden we're back to a 6.5 game lead, and it seems like every time we start to write this team off, all of a sudden they come through with a game like this. Braves do their part, and through it all, I mean, we should not be in first place right now with the way the team has played over the past month or so, but the Braves just cannot get it done. So there's still a 6.5 game lead for that. However, that does lead us to today's question of the day. And a lot is always made about the passion of Philly fans, the knowledge of Philly fans. And I happen to think both are true. We're very passionate, we're very knowledgeable, and that is why we sometimes get the reputation that we're too tough on our teams, is because that when that passion and that knowledge comes together, that's where you get one of those things. So with it appearing, anyway, at least with the way they've been playing, they did lose the first game of this series, but with the way they've been playing, it appears the Phillies have sort of gotten out of this funk. The offense, the guys are having better at-bats. The pitching has been decent. Some guys have been great. Some people like Nola have been But are we too emotional when it comes to our teams? Meaning, are we too up when we're doing well? Are we too down when things aren't going well? I kind of think yes, we are, especially when it comes to baseball and the Phillies. Obviously, I do think we're way, way too emotional when it comes to the Eagles, myself included. But that is today's question of the day. Are we too emotional sometimes when it comes to our sports teams? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. You can also follow me and answer on social media. Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. At Philly Jimbo on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. Comment wherever you're watching or listening to this. Also, while you're there, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast platform you're watching on, or listening on, I should say. And if you even if you are a podcast listener, go like and then subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. That always helps, and spread the word. We are slow. It's been a slow burn over the past 2 years, but we gained a lot of traction. So let's continue this as we go into fall season. But the question of the day, are we too emotional when it comes to our team sometimes? I think this should be 85-90%. Yes, we are. If we're going to have those honest conversations with ourselves. And that's all I want to do is promote honesty. Let's be open with things. And yeah, we're too over the top sometimes with our emotion. But sometimes that emotion is deep rooted in our knowledge. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think with this Phillies team, myself included, we were all ready to jump off the Ben Franklin Bridge, Walt Whitman, Tacony Palmyra, but I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. But are we too emotional? That's the question of the day. 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Sticking with baseball for a minute. And there is a story developing up in Bucks County. And I mentioned a little bit about this a couple weeks ago. Still trying to figure out the best way that, and if there's anything there to move on and to bring to the podcast. But the Council Rock Newtown Little League team is 1 win away from going to Williamsport and the Little League World Series. I've been watching some highlights and doing some reading on this. The team is dominant. Absolutely dominant. They've won like 17 games in a row. They just beat the Maryland team the other day 11-1. Setting up the Mid-Atlantic Regional Final for Friday. I believe they will play the winner of the DC-Maryland game. I guess like the Maryland or the Baltimore-DC Metro team or whatever. However they do that. I know each area does it slightly different versus the state of Maryland. And then the other thing is I don't know because they are undefeated. I don't know if they lose, whether they set up another win and get in game because I think a lot of these tournaments are double elimination. But if you get a chance, look at some of the highlights. This team is just amazing. Apparently they've all been playing together, or most of them have been playing together since they've been 7. So they sort of know each other and know what's happening. But kudos to the Council Rock Newtown Little League team for being 1 win away from going to Williamsport. As a kid, I always loved the Little League World Series. I remember one of my favorite, and let me know on either the social media or the Back to the Future voice and text line if you played this game. There was a Little League baseball game in that on Nintendo that I used to love to play, and Texas was always a good team. Pennsylvania was a good team. Canada always had a good team. Chinese Taipei was always a good team. But let me know if you played that game. But I will keep you updated on Friday once that game has been played. And I will double check and get into how the tournament works. I would imagine if every other team gets 2 losses, they would play another game before heading up to Williamsport, or to see who gets to go up to Williamsport. But Council Rock Newtown Little League team on the verge of going to Williamsport, and I, for one, am all about it. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast, doing great things with baseball, gearing up for their football season. That is available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then go to Philly Goat. Get your back-to-school shopping done. And look, if you want to get your kids set up for baseball season playoff season once they go back to school, do some shopping there with the baseball collection. And in honor of Darren Doughton, who the anniversary of his passing away was yesterday, 7 years ago. Hard to believe that's been 7 years, actually, too. The Philly Goat is donating 10% of all sales from baseball-related items to the Darren Doughton Foundation. They have a goal set up. You can check it out on their social media to see. But go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. Be sure to use the promo code. It's all one word. That lets Ryan know you're listening. Helps me out. Helps you out. Helps him out. But check out the baseball collection, and 10% of all of your baseball sales go toward the Darren Doughton Foundation for research for people with, I forget the actual name of the brain cancer he had, but unfortunately it was one of the aggressive types. But 10% of your sales will go to help out for research for the brain cancer with the Darren Doughton Foundation. So anything Phillies baseball, go check it out. phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. All right, guys. Joe had himself a game yesterday in the Olympics. Only played 12 minutes, but it was enough for him to score 14 points on 5 for 6 shooting, 7 rebounds, an assist, and a block. That's the Joe that we saw dominating early last year. And as long as that's the Joe we're going to get come October, sign me up. But kudos to him. Finally, rough start to him for the Olympics. But he seems like now that I don't know if he's playing himself into shape or what, but he definitely dominated Brazil in the limited time he had yesterday. 14 points, 7 rebounds in 12 minutes. Eagles still gearing up for Friday. They released their unofficial depth chart. I don't really think there were any surprises or shocks on there. And it's also the unofficial depth chart. Anxious to see who's going to get to play on Friday. I am looking forward to seeing some of the young guys on defense and what they're going to do. I don't know. I would love to see Jalen come in for the first team offense, come in for like one series, march down the field, and get the hell out of there. But that still remains to be seen. I'm going to imagine we would know either today or tomorrow what's going to happen. But again, they could always change that up till game time. But that is Friday night. All right, today, since the Phillies won, and I couldn't decide which one of these was the more interesting story, we're going to do a Phillies doubleheader today, a Philly doubleheader Wednesday. Why not? First, we're going to go back to 2000, and on this day in 2000, Ed Wade completed one of the most bizarre series of trades in team history. And on this day, Rob Ducey returned to the Phillies from the Blue Jays as the player to be named later in a trade earlier that week that sent Mickey Morandini to the Blue Jays. Not that crazy, essentially. Hey, you guys want Mickey Morandini? We'll take a player later. That player happened to be Rob Ducey. Well, on July 26, Rob Ducey was traded by the Phillies to the Blue Jays for John Snead. So essentially, Ed Wade traded Mickey Morandini for John Snead and Rob Ducey for Rob Ducey. Yeah, so Ducey only played 5 games with the Blue Jays and came back to the Phillies. Not officially traded for himself, but unofficially, Rob Ducey was traded for himself on this day back in 2000. So Ed Wade did help bring in some of those guys that helped us win the World Series, like Utley, Howard, Rollins, even Pat Burrell. But this was not one of Ed Wade's better trades, as Rob Ducey came back to the Phillies on this day as the player to be named later in the trade for that sent Mickey Morandini to the Blue Jays. The only thing that makes it bizarre is the fact that Ed Wade traded Rob Ducey to the Blue Jays like a week or 2 weeks before. I don't know. And then 1 year later, in 2001, the Phillies beat the Padres 7-3. Scott Rolen, Pat Burrell, and Bobby Abreu all homered. Bobby Abreu's home run in the 5th inning was the 10,000th in team history. And for those of you keeping score at home, currently the Phillies have 14,084, and that includes the 2 hit last night by Kyle Schwarber and Edmundo Sosa. Number 14,000 actually came this year back in May against the Rangers, and it was hit by JT Realmuto. But on this day in 2001, Bobby Abreu hit the Phillies' 10,000th home run in franchise history, a year after Ed Wade essentially traded Rob Ducey for Rob Ducey. Gotta love Ed Wade. All right, and finally today, our Philly Olympic Spotlight. We're looking at Maia Weintraub, who is a fencer. She's from Philly, went to Friends Select, and currently attends Princeton. This was is her first Olympics. She made the fencing team as an alternate, and as fate would have it, in the gold medal final, she was inserted as a sub against Italy's most experienced fencer and a former gold medalist, and Maia just dominated, held her own. She said she just was like, fencing is all mental. So I didn't even think about it. I went in and did my thing. She helped the women's foil team win a gold medal at this Olympics for the first time in team history. So shout out to Phillies, Maia Weintraub, Friends Select, Princeton's own gold medal winner, helping the United States win their first ever women's foil gold medal as a sub late, and got put into a tough situation, but she held her own and dominated, bringing home the gold, making Philly proud, Friends Select proud, and Princeton proud. So shout out to you, Maia, our Philly Olympic Spotlight of the day. On this day in 2001, Bobby Abreu hit the 10,000th home run in Phillies history. And a year prior to that, in 2000, Rob Ducey returned to the Phillies as a player to be named later, just weeks after he was traded to the Blue Jays by Ed Wade. And when you break it down, essentially he was traded for himself twice. I don't know. Ed Wade, you got to love him. We'll have more as we approach the Eagles preseason opener on Friday. Looking forward to that. Joe gets a nice day off. They will play in, I believe it's the semifinals. I think yesterday was the quarterfinals. They'll play in the semifinals against Serbia, I think tomorrow or Friday. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that. I would imagine Joe will get some run in that game playing against Jokic. Let's go USA. Phils look to take the series against the Dodgers tonight out in LA. Another late one, but 70% of you will be watching. I, unfortunately, will not be. So go Phillies. Let's get this W, get the series, and move on to Arizona. I will also keep you updated on the Council Rock Newtown Little League team as they look to go to Williamsport and bring home the Little League World Series. Like I said, be sure to check me out on all the social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, spread the word, all of that other good stuff. But answer the question of the day. Are we too emotional as Philly fans? I think it's fair to say we're the most passionate fan base. I'd also be pretty willing to go out on a limb that for across all four major sports, we're the most knowledgeable fan base. But sometimes I think that passion leads us into a little bit of trouble when we get too emotional. But let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. That'll get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Be safe out there. Don't try to drive through floods. I know you hear it on the news all the time, but I see it all the time. People in small cars, even some big trucks and SUVs get stuck. So don't do anything stupid. Be safe out there. Have yourself some Wednesday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for August 7th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.